Hey Earpers, welcome to the next episode of There's Something in the Air. We're back to discuss episode 102, Keep the Home Fires Burning. You're here with VP.
Michelle.
Monica.
Awesome. Okay, so this episode is the one with the big city rave, odd hors d'oeuvre options, the new fiery redheaded cop, shadow puppets, talismans, fires, massive amounts of symbolism, and the most stylish imaginary friend of all time. Who wants to kick us off?
Well, so we open with Wynonna walking through the big city club looking serious as fuck while it's like 90% women just having the time of their life. And then we kind of do a really short flashback to Wynonna and Dolls in the car, and like the best dialogue happens.
So he's telling her to be discreet, which, I mean, he should know by now that's not a thing.
Yeah, that's not something that's going to happen. He hasn't figured that out from like 5 minutes of talking to her.
Yeah, she's like the least professional, discreet person, and it's amazing, but this is the still very buttoned up Dolls who is just kind of obnoxious.
Yeah, I still can't get behind him in this episode.
His clothing is slightly less formal by the end of it, so, and he kind of isn't as bad towards the end where he kind of confides with Wynonna, but we'll get there.
So we're settling in with him by the end a little bit.
Yeah, he's slowly getting more casual with his attitude and his clothing. So the first thing he does was tell Wynonna to be discreet, and then he goes ahead and swaps Peacemaker out for a special government issue gun with a flashlight that Wynonna temporarily blinds him with.
Which is so stupid. Like, there are revenants, there's a curse. I mean, I realize Black Badge's knowledge of the Earp curse isn't all-encompassing, but you're going to be like, oh, I think that these demons that no one can manage to rid the world of permanently, I think that this that I just got out of storage is going to do it. No matter how accurate it is. Like, I don't know, whatever.
I like how he doesn't believe that Wynonna knows anything about, like, the curse that her family's been dealing with for a very long time.
Well, didn't her dad tell that in the original story? In the flashbacks, he said, like, Peacemaker is the only one. I mean, wasn't that part of the story from the very beginning?
Yes.
Yeah. So she knows what's going on, but fucking Dolls at the beginning.
But the patriarchy always think they know more than, the heroine.
Yep.
Okay, so real quick, I actually want to bring up something from 101 because I watched a little bit of that before I watched this episode. I just kind of like to see what transitions into what. And we were talking last week about Peacemaker and its being near sentient, which is, a whole other discussion that we're going to get into at some point. But I was curious about how it misfired when she tried to shoot stupid Carl.
That's a good point. I don't have an answer for that.
Well, it is possible that she was out of bullets, although bullets into Peacemaker is another topic that...
I swear she doesn't need bullets when she is shooting Revenants because she has fired way more than 6 rounds when Peacemaker's glowing.
Now, another possibility is that not only is Peacemaker sentient, but there's some sort of powers that be involved, and so some sort of greater being wanted Doc to be able to help them, that maybe that would help him form a connection to these Earps as opposed to Wyatt when he's so hell-bent on revenge, to give him something else to focus on. Maybe that was some sort of greater good trying to give him some sense of responsibility about them.
Yeah, that's an interesting theory, like an opportunity for him to step up, because obviously he was watching the situation unfold, but it's not like he was there to just, really provide help. It got to that very end of the situation, and then he felt like he needed to intervene, but still in secret.
Well, as we learn, I mean, the only reason he's really teaming up with Bobo is because he needs something, and Bobo's the only one that can provide that.
I mean, and you see by the end of this episode that he has conflicting feelings about all of the Earps, Wyatt included, and the part that he played towards the end of Wyatt's life. But he really, I don't know, is starting to form some bonds with Wynonna and Waverly and their mailbox and Champ's jeans.
Okay, sorry, back to 102.
All right, yes. Back to the episode. So, in the car, Wynonna makes a delightful joke about blowjobs.
Hilarious, man. Hilarious. I love that joke.
Well, she says that joke kills with the Hells Angels, and I'm like, did she spend time with the Hells Angels and the Banditos? Like, what is her life?
Maybe there was
Probably
some
just, like-
overlap.
That is true. There might be some overlap, but I think also she just probably frequents some pretty dive bars.
We definitely find that out in season 2.
Pussy Willows.
Pussy Willows.
So Wynonna also makes a bet that if she's right and Peacemaker's the only thing that can put down revenants, then Dolls has to buy her dinner and vice versa. And then she gets out of the car just like waving the gun around, and Dolls is just face palming because she's not going to be discreet.
I think that was another really good, like, you know, people don't automatically become heroic even if there's some sort of supernatural being. Like, there's a learning curve involved that you don't automatically know when you get out of the car to holster the gun or to try and be discreet, or, you know, the best way to go about doing things. Like, Wynonna just goes in literally guns blazing, and I think that's very believable.
Well, so she enters the club and she sees Red with two ladies, and I'm like really interested in why these two ladies are hanging out with this guy who has like sharpened teeth.
Seriously, like, how they're attractive. How is that a thing? I don't understand that at all.
My thing is, like, you can be into whoever you want, but if you see a dude that has sharpened teeth, like, why the fuck did he have sharpened teeth? You have to think for a second and be like, well, maybe no thanks.
And, like, even let's say sharpened teeth are your thing. Okay, fine. Let's just move past that. Like, taking the teeth away, he is not what I would call, like, an attractive man. I'm not like, oh man, those teeth are rough, but the rest of the package, that's where it's at. Like, he just kind of looks like this giant dork who's dressed like a revenant.
Yeah, when we get the flashback later to Wynonna and Waverly kind of figuring out that Killer Miller is one of the seven, you momentarily see Red, and he has like this really derpy look on his face. And I'm like, you are the least intimidating revenant ever.
He looks like an accountant who got caught in the crossfire and now is playing dress up to try and hang out with the cool kids.
Accurate.
I mean, that might be I should probably stop talking now. That's probably going to be the best thing that I say all day.
Later, they actually mention, though, it's Levi that brings it up, the human familiars, which I think is interesting. I mean, they do that in, like, a lot of vampire lore. You know, so it's almost like they're kind of worshipped. But what would the revenants be worshipped for? I mean, I can't really think of anything besides kind of potentially power over the town, because it's not like they have any actual...
Well, we saw at the end of last episode during their war party reunion, like half of the faces glowed, and there were plenty of non-revenants hanging out there. So I don't know what the attraction is there.
The draw.
Yeah, but there were a whole lot of them. So back in the club, Wynonna spots Red, who just chomps off this lady's finger, and Wynonna tries so hard to follow protocol. She's like, law enforcement, whatever she says on that, and then she finally
cross-border task force.
Yeah,
as if that's
cross-border task force. Yeah, and then she's just kind of like, fuck it, I'm just gonna fire a bullet into the ceiling and call myself a crazy chick with a gun, and effectively causes a stampede out of the club. Which, I mean, people might have gotten hurt. We don't know.
She said that like one blonde broke a heel. So I trust her. I'm sure
one
she's
blonde
still
broke a heel, and one blonde lost a finger.
Well, I think
that wasn't her fault. Well, yeah.
I think too, it's not fair for Dolls to blame her. Like, Red was in there eating fingers. Like, that's not Wynonna's fault necessarily. I mean, I really feel like he is to blame. Sure, maybe she sped up the finger eating by her presence.
He pulled that finger out of his mouth like a cigarette, and I was
know.
just like, oh man.
That was great.
And then he taunted her with it by like sucking on it. It was really gross.
It was really gross, but it also made me want to have a cigarette, if we're being honest.
Well, that's not weird.
I'm questioning your sanity a little bit right now.
I told you, this is not my sanest week. You can question that, I don't care. It's how he holds it, then he flicks it on the ground. Anyway.
So the lady gets her finger, like, bit off, and she, like, I mean, she's probably in shock. So she, like, flees to, like, the side to look that she doesn't have a finger anymore. And her friend that walks past, her reaction to it is she just, like, throws some side-eye at the guy. She doesn't seem, like, overly concerned about her friend. She just throws side-eye at Red and, like, walks past him. And I was like, well, that's... I mean, if like, one of your fingers got, like, bit off, I think my reaction would be a little bit more, like, traumatized.
It would depend on what else was going on at the time. Like, let's say a revenant bit off my finger, but Amy Acker was over to your right and was just walking in a room. Then you'd be like, oh, I'm so sorry that you're not going to be able to type anymore, but Amy Acker.
I like how you're the one that name-dropped Amy Acker this time. It wasn't even me.
You're welcome. I thought you might be sad because you hadn't done it yet.
I mean, it would have happened at some point.
I know. Not 5 minutes in like the last time, but it definitely would have happened.
So she's in the running for that bitch this episode.
Well, no, and then when Wynonna runs past Red, we, like, see those two again. Like, they're still there. And her friend is, like, kind of looking at her finger, but she doesn't look all that concerned. Like, she's just kind of, like, it seems like she's just annoyed that her, like, night got ruined. At least that was my interpretation of it. I'm sure somebody will comment back and say I'm wrong, but that was how I interpreted it. And
that someone will be me.
Well, she was probably on holiday in the big city, and
city
couldn't be bothered with such antics.
So she's like my nominee for the That Bitch Award for this episode.
All right, so we have two potentials: Doc Holliday and that girl's friend.
This happened before we did Doc, in theory.
Yes, we'll cut that out.
It's fine. Cut it, just cut everything.
Just cut everything.
BP just completely cut this apart and, like, paste it back together, however.
This episode will be out in a month and a half.
Well, so he flees, and Wynonna goes to go after him, and I don't completely understand Levi, but he goes ahead and tackles her and gets a hold of the gun, and just says the dumbest line. He's like, this ain't Peacemaker. And it's like, no shit.
Yeah, did you not see that when she shot your friend? It's not, I mean, it doesn't look anywhere near like it.
But what I did like was that Wynonna's Earp Air superpowers showed up again, because she, like, takes him out with some hardcore wrestling moves.
Yeah,
she knows karate, and she now knows how to wrestle.
It reminded me of that episode in Buffy, I think it was in season 5 or 6, where she, like, randomly out of the blue with no training that we know of does, like, the Hurricane Rana on someone, on a vampire. It might have been on Spike. And I was like, oh, that's what it reminded me of. I thought that was pretty great. It was very entertaining. But I don't think we ever see her do that again.
No, it's like the karate. It kind of disappeared after the one episode. So then we go, and Wynonna chases after Red and just tries to publicly execute him in the middle of a club with plenty of people watching. Which is probably not the best decision, as Dolls points out, but also what was she supposed to do?
Yeah, discreet doesn't really come to mind with that decision, but also he killed her family, so I'm not sure that she's necessarily keeping a super level head about what she's doing.
Oh, without a doubt. So Wynonna ends up winning the bet because while Dolls is scolding her, Red gets away, and outside the club, he attempts to lecture her again, but she's definitely just more interested in having won the bet and wanting some tacos.
This show's obsessed with tacos. I agree.
I mean, tacos are tasty.
Are you in trouble?
No, not right now.
Okay. Good, because you're, like, a long way away from both of us. I think you'd have to call someone else.
Like 911.
That's a good option.
Just call 911 and start screaming tacos are tasty and hope that they're a Wynonna Earp fan.
I mean, isn't everybody a Wynonna Earp fan?
I'd
Everyone
like
I
to
know
think
is.
so.
Everyone, there are two kinds of people: people who like Wynonna Earp and people who haven't watched it yet.
True. So the last scene in our cold open is over at the random barn where I mean, I have some issues with the scene. I know they're setting up like the big bad for this episode, but so the security guard walks in and he's in the middle of the room. He's a good like 2 to 3 feet away from like there's like one table or something, and he's like shining his flashlight. How did he cut his hand?
How did he cut his hand? Why was he in there to begin with? And it took like 2.5 seconds for Killer Miller to be like, "Yep, you're the target," and he was dead.
Well, and also Killer Miller came through the barn doors like he's the back of him is all sunlight. He's a shadow. He shouldn't be able to exist in light, which is why he sucks all the light out, but he came from outside. I mean, it was a really cool shot and it like he looked really intimidating, but I was just like, "Wait a second. How did you do that?"
I thought one of the weird things was when Doc goes in there and he is going to be, the blood sacrifice, he rubs his blood on the doorway. Whereas that guy, like, as soon as he cut his hand, it's like, creepy shadow hanging around me.
In Doc's defense, clearly nobody explained the rules to him beforehand. Maybe he was just guessing?
I meant that more as like the shadow, because I mean he clearly didn't come out until he did that. There was a delay, much more so. Is all I'm saying.
I also like how Bobo didn't tell him that he needed, something of Wynonna's, and he probably was just like, 50-50. Either he kills Wynonna or he gets rid of Doc. Either way, win-win.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, yeah, we'll let him figure it out. He's a smart guy.
Well, didn't he tell him to get something of the Earps? But he was saying to bring that to him, right?
He said he wanted something of the Earps.
Of the heirs, though, specifically, right?
No, to show what they're planning.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he wants to know how much they know.
Yeah, I don't think he thought of Killer Miller until his revenants went rogue, and he's just like, you know what, we got to deal with this shit. So we have the credits, and then we go to the trailer park where Doc exits and has the delightful bitch spray painted on his door.
That bitch. Doc is that bitch in this episode, apparently.
I mean, he kind of is. He almost gets Waverly killed.
He may win the That Bitch award. We'll see at the end of this podcast, but he's definitely a front runner right now.
I like his exit where he's just kind of like, well, I seem to have settled amongst a commune of artistes. The way he says that is so perfect.
I love how calm he is. Like, he's just so not put off by anything in the first several episodes, It's like, here I am, just existing. I will roll with it, whatever the issue is.
Well, I think it's because there he is, just existing, not in a well. He's just happy to not be in the well.
Well, it seems like by the end of the episode, after he has to drag Levi past the line and Bobo goes on his little rant, his face to me looked a little like, oh no, I've made a terrible mistake.
Yeah, what have I gotten myself into?
He's so hell-bent on revenge, though. Like, I don't even know that he cares. He doesn't think that there's any price that's too steep to pay, it would seem to me.
Well, I mean, he did spend a really long time in the caves in the well, so... Right. I mean, and probably the entire time he was just thinking about getting back at the Stone Witch for putting him there.
Yeah, I mean, what else would you be doing?
So, first thing, after waking up, he decides that he's going to go play Texas Hold'em with the Revenants.
Who in their right mind would agree to play poker with Doc Holliday?
Isn't he known as, the best gunslinger and, as a really good gambler?
Like, are they fucking idiots? Oh, yeah, I'm going to play this guy. What's wrong with you? Do you think he forgot how to play? When he was at the bottom of the well, he probably had a deck of cards with him. I'm sure he stayed sharp.
He's kind of a shark, though. He's just so smooth, and he's like, don't you just want to take my money? And they're, dumb.
He is a shark. He is very charming, also. He is everybody's type.
I really enjoy at the poker table before Doc shows up how Red and Levi are mocking each other's gunshot wounds, and I'm like, both of you dumbasses got shot by the air. If she had Peacemaker, you'd be gone.
And, Red wants to discredit Wynonna, so he, like, attacks her. What does he say, that she has a rabid case of nymphomania? Where is that even coming from? You're just like,
Yeah, I didn't
oh, I don't
understand that
I don't
comment.
like this woman, so I'm going to insinuate that that she sleeps around. Eh,
He also claims that she doesn't have Peacemaker, which, I mean, she put down Malcolm last episode. She obviously has Peacemaker.
Yeah, I was also wondering why he wouldn't have known that.
Like, are they so short-sighted that they're like, well, she didn't have it the last time we saw her, so obviously it's gone. Although I guess Revenants are not known for their logical thinking necessarily.
Probably not. I just thought of one thing we forgot to cover when Dolls and Wynonna are talking outside the club after everything goes to shit. Dolls has the line, "You flew over the radar in a flaming pink jet," and we learned that Wynonna despises the color pink. Like, really.
I was so excited about that. I absolutely hate pink. And I was like, yeah, girl, you go. And it's not the only time she says it.
No, it
No,
comes up again
later.
at the end. Yeah. Sorry, Michelle. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say later when Waverly wants to decorate the house pink, and Wynonna's like, "I will just fucking shoot you."
I'm going to go off topic for 10 seconds, which you can totally cut later if you want to, but I'm super excited that I finally found something that you guys disagree about.
I
What's that?
don't like most pink. The only pink that I like is like super like
Neon.
neon pink.
Hello.
Oh my god.
So we are still twins.
Great. Great, great, great.
Haha, Monica.
Kathy foiled again.
All right, so after they start playing poker, we cut to some sort of shooting range. I don't know if like Dolls set it up or what, because it's just in the middle of nowhere, it seems like.
I assumed that it was somewhere on the 10 acres of the homestead land.
Okay, fair enough.
I mean, there's a lot of middle of nowhere around there, though. It could just, pick a spot on the road.
That's true.
My question was, where did, like, is Dolls getting, like, weapons deliveries from Black Badge? Because he has a shit ton of an arsenal out there with them.
Yeah, I don't think all of those would have necessarily fit in his gun safe, and he didn't have that up and running yet.
Why are they doing that after they determine that Peacemaker is the only gun that works?
Well, he acts like it's punishment for her because she generated a bunch of paperwork, but it seems like she's having a pretty good time. Like, going out and playing with a bunch of weapons on a shooting range doesn't really seem that bad.
No, I think that's awesome.
Well, and she has so much fun. Like, with each of those weapons that she fires, she's just like, oh my god, the power.
Is it an issue of aim, though? Just like trying different weapons to try to get that down? Because obviously Peacemaker doesn't always fire at will.
Maybe.
Of course, it's, being sentient doesn't miss either, so.
It doesn't miss when it doesn't want to.
Exactly.
And while Wynonna and Dolls chat, she lets Dolls know that there's 77 revenants, give or take the 7. So we finally get a number on how many she's gonna have to put down.
That's a very daunting task ahead of her.
Well, Edwin Earp, the one-year wonder, got pretty damn close apparently.
Did anybody else, like, I'm curious why, I don't think we talked about this last week, why his name didn't start with W? Like, was that just something that skipped over him, and Ward and Wyatt and Waverly and Willa and Wynonna were just, anomalies? Like, it just accidentally happened that way? I just thought it was interesting that his name didn't start with a W.
That is interesting, because it's not like they only named the heirs that. They named all of them with W names. I love the comment about the Roosevelts.
I was just gonna say that. I mean, it does seem like something Eleanor Roosevelt would do. She was kind of a badass, too.
And Wynonna's expression when he's like, no, Teddy, is just like another classic Melanie Scrofano face.
I feel like we could have a podcast that just talked about Melanie Scrofano's faces, but it would have to be like I don't know, more like a vlog where we could show pictures, like, and this is why I love this face, and then we talk about it for 3 hours. That's after the podcast takes off and we can all quit our jobs. That'll be the next project, I think.
The live shows.
It's going to be amazing. I can't wait to, to go to, I'm trying to think of a random city. We'll play it. We'll be big in Columbus, I think.
I love how she goes straight to the woman, though. She's like, obviously, the woman did this badass thing.
Oh, yeah.
And I like, too, that she was like, ooh, is there a flamethrower? And it's kind of, foreshadowing, sort of, because we do eventually get a flamethrower. She doesn't get to use it, but we do get one eventually.
And I like that both her and Waverly both want a flamethrower in this episode. Like, that's where their mind goes instantly. Flamethrower.
Sisters. More proof that they're sisters. Sorry, I just scrolled down in my notes and I see this screenshot that I took of smiling Champ. And I think I'm going to have to scroll back so I don't have to see him. There, that's better.
I also like, Waverly and Champ, I don't know what they're doing. They're just, like, going for a joyride through the fields. But Champ was standing out of the roof, and I was kind of hoping Waverly would hit a bump.
Or Wynonna would try her target practice, she would try and hit a moving target. He's so happy and having such a good time. And I just keep thinking, you just tried to sleep with your girlfriend's sister. And he has no guilt about that whatsoever. And it actually says in my recap, oh, to have the confidence and self-assurance of a mediocre straight white man.
Well, Waverly doesn't seem to be holding it against him.
Which I don't understand either. But, I mean, I know. She just wants to blend in and wants everyone to like her. And I realize Champ's popular and it just makes her life easier. But, God, she can do so much better.
And that's the very last scene we saw him in, right? Was when he was with Wynonna. He's not in any other scenes before this, happy-go-lucky ride.
No, I don't think so.
No, we don't see him until now.
And Dawes pulls out that picture of Valdita, New Mexico from his wallet, and I'm like, you just walk around with pictures of devastation in your pocket all the time? Like, is that a thing you do? I mean, it's Dawes, so really, who knows? But...
Well, Wynonna makes that point. Normal dudes carry baby pictures.
And she calls him out on it. I mean, what's he gonna do? Pull out a picture of, Daenerys' 3 little dragons?
I think that's his way, though, of, remembering what his mission is. Because he has a very, very complicated relationship with Black Badge. Even though he's such, just the rule follower and the order guy, he has a very complicated relationship with them. And I think that picture, it's kind of like when soldiers, they'll carry pictures of, their comrades who have died if they were near them in battle. That's just kind of how I viewed it. That's his motivation to continue on doing what he's doing.
That's a really good point, and I never thought of it that way. That's really cool.
After this, we go back to the trailer park.
Okay, I just have a quick question. Where did Doc get his money? Was it just jangling in his pockets? Was it in a well for 130 years? Did he run some sort of dry cleaning service out of the underground spring in the well that I don't know about and people paid him in pirate booty? I just didn't understand where he got money to gamble with.
Because it's old, I would assume he had it buried somewhere.
I imagine he just had it on his person. I mean, it was 4 coins.
That's true. It's not like it was a bag of gold.
I'm happy to see too that his mustache is growing in very nicely. It looked a little sad in the pilot, and now it's starting to become the Doc Holliday that we all know and love. That will eventually have macaroni and cheese in it from season 2, which I loved. I was like, "There's macaroni and cheese in his mustache. That's amazing."
And then we get there, and Doc is telling some ridiculous story that I didn't quite follow. Woman with a tail.
Yeah, she was propositioning him, I think, and he was like, "Well, she had a tail, but it was wagging." So I was like, "All right." Really?
It wasn't wagging.
I thought it was.
No, he said it wasn't, so he was game. But I think it was a sex worker, though. I mean, it was somebody that he had hired already. So then by the time he realized that was what was going on, it was like, okay, well, I already spent my money.
I'm also wondering, do women just walk around with tails? in purgatory? Is that just like run of the mill normal?
I mean, if they have one, what do you?
What is this, Orphan
What are they
Black?
going to do? It's not detachable, Michelle. God, don't be ridiculous.
I guess she really took a quick trip to Canada with Orphan Black and got some upgrades.
I was thinking the same thing. That's some Neolution shit right there.
I have questions again about the weather in Purgatory, because Doc is in pants, shirt, vest, coat, hat, and some of the ladies with the Revenants are like cut off jean shorts and tank tops, and then Bobo is wearing his big Lady Gaga coat. I don't like. Do the demons and immortals just run cold? Is there any rhyme and reason to it? I just don't understand.
That's an interesting question as well. Yeah, because even Waverly in Shorties is in short shorts and, her tied up shorty shirt.
Maybe the Revenants are just so used to like the temperature in hell that when they come up, it's like, damn, it's freezing here.
Anything under 1,000 is like a
Right.
a cold winter.
I guess it made more sense to me when she was in shorties, because I would imagine that when she's running around serving everybody, it gets really warm in there. But they're all outside here, and it seemed inconsistent. But again, I'm trying to find logic in a show about a demon killing gun. Like, I'm aware of that. It's just, it's just my purgatory weather check for the week. Do you guys, and I forgot to look when he climbed out of the well. I was too busy looking at the ring. Do you think Doc had his guns in the well, or is that something else that he had buried or that he procured after he came out?
I think he'd need to procure them afterwards, or if he had them with him, he would have to do a lot of work to get those functional.
My thought was, if he had them in the well, and I realize this is a what if question, but if he did have them in the well, I wonder if it ever crossed his mind to shoot himself and put himself out of his misery.
I mean, unless and I don't remember whether they showed that in season 2 or not when they showed how he got in there. But I mean, he certainly wouldn't have been without his guns unless somebody took them from him. Like, unless, Robert's vein had taken them.
I would guess that, I mean, if he did have his guns down there, I mean, he's so driven by wanting to get revenge on Constance that might have just kept him, like, his will to live, just because he wanted to get back at her for this bullshit situation.
But like, for 100 plus years to hold on to that and not succumb to that, that's just really impressive. That's all.
You'd be surprised the power of revenge.
I think that if he hadn't gotten kind of a purpose with the Earps by the time he got his revenge on her, that may have surfaced at that point.
Well, because eventually we find out that he can't, like, whatever happens to Clutie happens to him. So if he didn't have that relationship with the Earps, I imagine at that point, if all he had was revenge, he'd be like, all right, I get my revenge, and yeah, I'll go down with her, but at least I'll have taken her out.
Exactly. And even though he tries to leave town, like, that's not really going to happen. He's so close to those girls by then and just kind of doesn't want to admit that.
Oh, so Levi comes back because apparently Doc cleaned him out, and I guess he went, like, whining to Bobo that, like, Doc was bullying him and took his money because Bobo finally wants to meet with Doc.
Levi is like the Xander Harris of the Revenants.
Yeah, I wrote somewhere in my notes that he's really bad at being evil. Like, it doesn't work for him.
He's just, I don't know, he just seems like he reminds me of Xander as Dracula's minion in season 5. Doc says it's only a matter of time before the Earp sisters figure out who he is and what he did to Wyatt. Does he just mean, like, abandoning him after he got his immortality? Because he didn't really play a part in his death, did he?
I don't think so. I really like the dynamic between Bobo and Doc here at the beginning, because it seems like they don't know each other, and we later find out that they were well acquainted and not exactly friends, but the, like, dynamic here would, like, suggest otherwise. And I know that they hadn't figured out the plot, but it's interesting to see in retrospect.
It was cool too, because when we see that flashback, like, Robert's vein is kind of this, humble do-gooder guy, and Doc's kind of a dick.
Talk about the dorky accountant. I mean,
yeah, it just the roles are really really kind of swapped here. Not that Doc, especially at this point of time, is a dorky do-gooder, but more so than Bobo, obviously.
and he has to almost play from, a position of like that Bobo has the authority because Bobo has something he wants.
True. And he lets Bobo beat him up.
Yeah, he can't go toe to toe.
Doc definitely is in it for the long game. Like, he's willing to put up with a lot in order to get his revenge on Clootie.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. So Bobo asks Doc to go get something of the Earps to show like how much they know or what their plans are, as like a way to prove to him that Doc is actually on like Team Revenant.
Yeah, he wants him to show. He says, "What I've already done hasn't proved my loyalty," and Bobo says it's a moving target, which I thought was a really cool line.
A lot of moving targets in this show.
Well, Bobo holds all the cards, so he doesn't need to ever trust Doc. He can just keep Doc running in circles forever if he really wanted to.
Yeah, Doc doesn't really have anything that he needs. It's just that Doc can choose to get closer to the family, and then also he's human. So if he could make him do stuff, there are things the Revenants can't do, but it's not like, he has a specific need for Doc himself.
Well, that's like Bobo doesn't need anything from him, and that's like when Doc is searching Waverly's apartment, and he says something like, "What do you get for like the sociopath who has everything?" Like, he knows that like Bobo already has everything, so whatever like he gets asked to do, that's like he doesn't have a choice. So next we go to Shorty's, where for some reason that I really don't get, Wynonna, Gus, and Waverly are having like family dinner downstairs in the bar.
Right. Why are they doing that? And also, when they show the establishing shot of Shorty's, there are 4 motorcycles outside. Okay, let's suspend disbelief here for a minute and decide that all 3 of them arrived to Shorty's for their Canadian Thanksgiving on a motorcycle. Who's the 4th one? Whose motorcycle is that?
I mean, maybe there was just like not a lot of street parking.
And someone's going to explain to us how many parking spots there are in Purgatory and what the parking meter rules are. I look forward to that, wherever we missed it in the 2 seasons.
Oh yeah, there's like a motorcycle festival in, the other side of town. It's fine. I think they had it here at Shorty's because they don't use Gus's house as a scene anymore. Is that correct? As a shooting location?
I believe you're right.
Yeah, they don't.
Then that would be why.
Well, yeah, and later Wynonna says that like they can't stay at Gus's because it's not safe. So maybe they're just like they've abandoned it because the Revenants have kind of ruined it by that attack.
With the paint. I'm sorry, with the blood. With the bring the gun high noon. It was definitely blood. Yep,
definitely not paint.
Yeah. And I like when Wynonna pulls out Waverly's drawing. Like, I don't know how closely you guys looked at it, but 2 things really stuck out to me. 1, she spelled Willa's name wrong.
Aww.
She spelled it Willie, W-I-L-L-I. And 2, everyone is smiling except for Waverly.
Oh, I didn't notice that. It's
like,
terrible.
It's awful. It's awful.
It's like one of those things you draw in a psychologist's office when you're a child, and they're trying to figure out like what your family issues are. And I'm sure they could extrapolate a ton from that. Had anyone ever cared enough to send her to a psychologist.
Right. There's also a rainbow in it. I'm not saying that that's foreshadowing about her journey in season 1. I'm just saying that there's a rainbow. Just an observation.
Well, I didn't see that she was frowning, but a main thread is like Waverly not feeling accepted by her family, and I didn't catch that, but we get later where her height isn't marked on the wall.
Yeah.
And so like they started laying that out real early.
Poor Waverly.
That's terrible because they did it to where they were old enough, right? I mean, if Willow was 10, then Waverly was what, like 2? I mean, she was there, and they just chose not to do it.
Yeah, exactly. So Red shows up and is going to attack them because he wants the gun. Like, why are these dudes so obsessed with the gun? Do they think that if they have it, like...
Well, if they have it, the air doesn't have it.
Well, I guess so. I mean, we do find out later that if, they can all be free if Bobo crosses with the air and the gun, but I don't think any of them know that. So I love that that Gus shows up with an electric knife.
Well, Gus in this scene is just like on fire. First, she's drinking medicinal wine.
Right.
Then shows up with an electric knife. I laughed so hard when I watched that.
It's so great. I actually procured an electric knife for my Gus cosplay, so I am all set.
That's awesome. I like how, and this is jumping ahead a couple seconds, but I love how she comes out like hardcore ready to protect them and make, any kind of mess. But once Wynonna puts Red down and there's blood on the floor, she's got like the worst resting bitch face of like, I cannot believe I have to clean this up.
Like, oh my god.
How dare you make a mess?
The way she says, I'll go get a cloth, is just like, she's just so nonplussed by the situation.
So much disdain.
When Red grabs the gun and starts to sizzle, and Melanie's like creeping over. Melanie, sorry. I'm looking at my recap and it says Melanie Scrofano's face. And Wynonna, like, hesitantly creeps over to look and see what's happening. Like, the look on her face. That's another Melanie Scrofano's face moment. I just loved it so much.
I really like the dive. They both, like, make the dive for the gun. And, like, doesn't Red go over the counter?
Yes.
He ends up behind the bar. Yeah, he ends up behind the bar.
It's, like, the choreography of that was just so good.
It's funny to me that she looked at it for so long before they went for it. Like, if she had just started moving, she would have beat him because he wouldn't have known where it was. But she looked to her left for like 30 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, she really just wanted to set up that like that Old West face-off.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, the showdown.
Yeah, and I like that. Like, we get like that interesting camera zoom where like, I don't know, like everything goes black except for like Peacemaker.
I like that.
I don't think we see that again, but it was a pretty nice effect.
I like that too. It reminded me of like Kill Bill.
Exactly. That's also what it reminded me of.
Yes.
They tussle over the gun. It starts to burn Red, which we find out is a thing that Revenants can't hold the gun. And Wynonna ends up putting him down, and Levi is watching from outside and presumably we do know in the next couple scenes that he goes back and reports to Bobo. But I don't know, man, again, he's just such a little weasel and he still manages to not die in this episode. I just don't understand how it happens. But whatever.
Yeah, no. So I like the way that Wynonna approaches the gun too. She's just kind of like, I don't know what the fuck's going on, but I'm just going to make my way over here and pick up the gun.
Such a good face.
So after this meal, the next day, we get probably 75% of the fandom's favorite scene.
Yes. Definitely of this episode, maybe of the entire series.
Yeah. All right, guys, a lot of pressure. We got to do it justice. Otherwise, nobody's going to listen anymore.
No, yeah, we're all going to get attacked. We're all going to get attacked like Waverly gets attacked by the tap.
I was just, like, the tap, like, okay, she's like cleaning it and she knocks the tap. The problem with the tap is that, like, somebody bent the, like, opening so that it shoots at 90 degrees.
Perhaps it was Nicole Hott. Maybe she secretly snuck in and did that so, she could walk in on the wet t-shirt competition at Shorty's.
Maybe it was damaged during the scuffle with the Revenant.
That's true. Maybe Red
Perhaps.
knocked it when he jumped over the bar.
I don't even think it was on that side of the bar, but let's go with that.
Obviously that's not it, because she said she keeps telling Shorty that he needs to fix them. It's a thing.
Well, with the way that it's broken, I'm like, you can't really serve beer with it.
The engineer is obsessed on the broken tap.
I want to know how it happened. Yeah, it really bothered me a lot.
They have to have like a curved funnel to catch it, and then it goes into the mug.
Well, it would just be all foam.
They can have like an entire comic book series that it's like, Wynonna Earp Shorties, and we find out how the tap got bent.
They shouldn't have any beer hooked up to it because it would just spit out foam because of the way it would go into the. I'm sorry, I'll stop.
We could play What If the Tap Never Broke. Oh.
Oh my god.
And everybody stops listening to this podcast.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see you next week. So I know we said last week that Waverly's entrance was one of the best of all time, but I really thought that Nicole's opening line here was just really, really good. Like, I didn't know Shorties had wet t-shirt competitions. That just really told us so much about her character and kind of set up this scene and the storyline that's coming up between these two characters that just really set it up so well.
Well, I mean, I think that Nicole came into Shorties purely to hit on Waverly. Because do bars serve cappuccinos?
No.
Yeah, but...
Also, are bars open in the morning?
No.
Hey, this could be the only bar in Purgatory. I mean, except for the strip clubs. We don't know what they do. And it's a restaurant.
So it's a bar and a coffee shop and a restaurant? It's an all-in-one, one-stop shop?
Hey, man, where else are they going to go? Mama Olive's?
There are a bunch of businesses on Main Street. We see that in the episode where time stops and Wynonna gets magically pregnant. Or really, like, super pregnant.
Okay, I was going to say, I don't think it was magic. I think that's what happens. Well, I'm not going to explain that to you, Michelle.
Magically gets, like, third trimester pregnant.
Right.
Let me rephrase.
But yeah, she definitely goes in there just to hit on Waverly. But not in a creepy, predatory way. Like, it's genuine. She just saw this girl that she really likes, that she thought was attractive, and is like, I'm gonna go for it. That's amazing. Oh, that we all could have the confidence of Nicole Hutt when we see a girl that we like and we want to ask them out.
Yeah, seriously, I could use that.
It took me 10 years. Like, it takes her, what, like a week and a half? My God.
How long has she been in Purgatory, do we think? Like, did she just replace Lady Cop that we talked about last time? Like, is she just essentially, like, that character, or did we kind of agree that Lady Cop probably ran off?
I think Lady Cop just works different shifts, and we don't see her.
Well, he said, I have one rookie. Like, it made it sound like, I mean, Nedley says that in this episode, which makes it sound like she's the only other officer there.
I think that there are only 2 officers in Purgatory, and he's like, there's me, and then I have a rookie. Like, I got nothing over here.
Regardless of what she's talking about, like, it's not even about the content per se, but I like this version of Nicole more than what I feel like she turns into in season 2, just from the standpoint of her confidence. She loses a lot of that, which I can understand, you know, based on the story and how much she gets excluded and kind of feels like the outsider and all that. There's a lot of things that happen that chip away at that, but I just do appreciate the general concept of her confidence so much when she comes on screen.
Yeah, because she's just exuding it everywhere, which is really cool. I feel like it's not a character that we see a lot of. Even just a female character that's confident, much less a queer character, which felt very cool to me. And she's not, I'm not saying that Nicole or Kat Burrell aren't pretty or attractive, because I definitely think that they both are. But how she's presented is just, so many lesbians on TV are just, have so much lipstick and their nails are done and they're dressed a certain way. And she's just different. She feels more like me than a lot of other characters, which I think that's part of the reason why I liked her so much. That she just seems more casual and sporty, I guess, than, you know, dressed to the nines and everything like that. I can't think of a good example, I'm sorry, of the opposite of what I'm talking about.
Don't worry, we'll get comments.
What?
It's not Clark Griffin. just throwing that out there.
Doesn't do it for me, man. I don't know what that means.
She's not the antithesis to your example.
Right.
Oh, Clark Griffin.
Oh, do you like that show? Do you like her? I didn't.
I mean, she's all right. She's no Root.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, back to Wynonna Earp.
So yes, her confidence is very cool.
Her confidence is cool, and Waverly's instantly affected by it. And then I really have a question. It's been bothering me for like 2 years now. What exactly was Waverly's plan with like taking off her shirt? Like, I get that you're uncomfortable because you're covered in beer at like 10 a.m. But like, you're gonna take your shirt off. did she have another one back there, like behind the bar, or was she just gonna hang out in her bra?
Oh, there are definitely other shirts behind the bar. Because people want to come in and drink where Wyatt drank, so they want to come in and buy a Shorty's t-shirt. I think she was just going to put one of those on, because she has at least 3. She just wanted to add to her collection.
Okay, because I was just like, what was your plan? Because after Nicole helps her, she just kind of puts a dish rag over.
That was the plan. That was the plan all along. Oh, I'm just going to cover up with this towel while I talk to this cop.
And how she gets tangled in her shirt is, good job, Waverly.
I find it a little bit hard to believe that Waverly, the people pleaser, is going to be like, no, officer of the law, it's a half an hour before closing. I'm not going to give you a coffee.
Opening.
No, officer of the law, it's a half an hour before opening. I'm not going to give you a coffee. I have a hard time believing that.
They don't have cappuccino.
It's not a coffee shop. That was just Nicole's excuse.
They have cappuccino. Guys, just come on. Just let it happen. Just believe in the fact that Shorty's has cappuccino, okay? That's all. Suspend your disbelief.
I do agree with you, though. I'm surprised that she said we're not open yet.
Yeah.
I feel like she would have made that for her. She's standing right there already behind the bar doing things.
If she had ordered a beer, would she have been like, oh yeah, okay, let me just put this glass at a 90-degree angle and catch it from this tap?
Do you want a glass of foam?
I thought the scene was really cute. Obviously, how they interacted together was great. I saw some comments a while ago that people were complaining that Nicole was predatory towards her, and I definitely think that the predatory lesbian is a trope, and I 100% disagree that she was like that. I think she just came in and hit on a girl that she thought was cute. But their interactions with each other are so cute and also super dorky at the same time, which that's my jam. I really like that. But I think, as Waverly, there's zero self-awareness there of Waverly. Does she realize how attracted she is to her even from moment one, or is that something that hits her later? Because with Lena and Kara on Supergirl, I don't look at people I'm not attracted to the same way that Nicole looks at, the same way that Waverly looks at Nicole.
Well, Nicole walks in and she's just 100% hard eyes the entire time, which I don't view as predatory. But then she does the card drop, and I think Waverly's definitely attracted to her because she's just like, oh, Officer Hot. Of course her name is Hot. So I think it's okay, yeah, she is very attractive.
Which she is.
Yeah, she is. But I think Waverly is maybe not 100% aware, but kind of aware of her feelings.
It was a very cute scene and a really great way. A really great meet cute. I enjoyed it very much, obviously. It was a great scene. Please don't attack me.
As much as we can talk about this for 7 hours.
Right. Moving on.
We're going to move on to the police station where Dolls is commandeering the station from Nedley.
The only note I have on this scene is Dolls is not great at making friends.
So my only note on it is kind of a question. So when they're walking through the kitchen, Dolls sniffs the air, and then in the office he's the only thing I know is I checked your fridge and your cream is bad. Did he actually check the fridge, or are his dragon superpowers partially that he can smell expired dairy?
That is great. That never even occurred to me. That's awesome. That's my headcanon now. Dolls his dragon superpowers lets him smell spoiled milk. That's amazing.
I'm down with that. He should put that on his profile, or it should be in his black badge profile, superhero status, can smell spoiled milk.
Good smeller.
I just thought it was weird because he sniffs the air and noticeably. So I was interesting. But yeah, dragon superpowers, can sniff expired dairy.
Good to know.
All right, and then we go to Shorty's, and we have the amazing meeting between Waverly and Doc.
I love Waverly and Doc together. I just love them together. They just make me so happy.
Shorty's is so fed up with Doc and his like gold doubloons.
His pirate booty. I like that Waverly Earp explains Wyatt to Doc. That's pretty great. I thought it was weird though that she says that she's an Earper and doesn't admit that and doesn't say that she's an Earp. Like, is she already questioning, or is she trying to keep it from him? Because everyone in town knows her as Waverly Earp.
Well, I think that she doesn't know him, so she knows he's not necessarily from town. And with all of the Wyatt groupies, I imagine she wouldn't want them to necessarily know that she's an Earp, because, I mean, I don't know, they might be psychotic and break into her apartment because they want some Wyatt shit.
Yeah, you don't want a stalker on your hands.
So I think it was just like, oh, I don't want to deal with these groupies, like, being all up in my shit because I'm related to Wyatt.
Also, they have just figured out, that the curse is kind of in effect, and even if she's not specifically thinking that he is part of that, it's just, I think there's just like a heightened awareness going on.
Well, she did get kidnapped last week. Or last episode.
And I loved it.
Yeah, it happened last week.
Shh. So she says that she's an excellent judge of a character and she has a good feeling about him. And so she's going to cover the cost of his drink. So she pulls money out of her back pocket, says that she's going to cover him from her tips, and then she puts it in the tip jar.
I have that note. It made me laugh so much. She basically just like tricked Doc and like ripped off Shorty's.
Yeah. Like, oh, I'll cover it. I'll just tip myself. But shouldn't you put that? Is that how things work there at Shorty's? I don't know. I mean, it is a coffee shop too.
Seeing that made me love, like, my affection grew for Waverly when I noticed it this time around, because I'm like, oh, so she's like, I mean, she plays perfect, but I mean, she did just like rob Shorty's, so maybe she does have a little bit of like, maybe a little bit of Slytherin, and as you guys know, I'm all about that.
We do know that. Sorry, a quick observation from a couple of minutes ago. Whether or not Shorty's is a coffee shop, I'd like to point out that Nedley and Dolls were drinking coffee at Shorty's in a few weeks, in a future episode.
Oh, they are. I mean, that doesn't mean that in the back room there isn't like a Mr. Coffee.
I'm just trying to avoid, I can't believe you missed this. Dolls and Nedley were drinking coffee in this episode. Like, I'm just trying, not that anybody would say anything like that to us in any similar tone of voice, but that just occurred to me. So I thought,
hey, I already had to explain to some people this week that, like, sometimes when we get on a track, we just, like, play it up. It's not that we don't really believe they have coffee there. It's just,
And this, if you're looking for historical television episode accuracy, you're probably in the wrong place. Like, we're just having a good time talking about stuff that makes us laugh.
I love that Doc, once again, like, actually's somebody on Wyatt. She's like, don't you want to drink where Wyatt Earp drank? And he's like, Wyatt didn't drink. Whoa.
His entire deal is Earp-splaining Wyatt.
I think it's interesting, too, like, so Waverly says she's an excellent judge of character, and and after she walks away, Doc talks to himself, because apparently the truck isn't nearby for him to talk to, and he's like, oh, you really aren't a good judge of character. And it's just interesting that, like, both he and Wynonna do not view themselves as heroes or good people, but time and time again over the course of 2 episodes, they really prove that that's wrong. They are good people. They're making the best of a bad situation, but they really try and do the thing that's best for the people that they care about.
And Waverly is a good judge of character, because Doc totally, ends up being.
Yes.
Well, you guys know.
Well, we do. So then we go to the to the Black Badge Cop Shop, right? Where we have that really great scene of Wynonna saying that she's the only one who can handle Peacemaker, and then drops it on the ground.
After making an excellent vibrator joke.
Yes, that really was an excellent vibrator joke. And the look on Doll's face, like, oh my god, I have one deputy and it's her. She says things like this. It was really good.
You have your toys, I have mine.
And then Nicole Knox pops in, being her real nice self, delivering a package. Instead of leaving it outside, she's going to hand deliver it. And Dolls threatens her with death.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, if you ever come in without knocking again. And Wynonna's like, dude, she totally knocked. Like, what? What's
He's
wrong
just
with
a dick
you?
in these episodes.
He really is a dick. My note for this is Dolls was such a dick to Nicole. She is trying to be nice, but, like, man, he shuts her down immediately. He also, like, really likes to threaten people with treason.
She is so perky in this scene. I mean, until he, like, shuts her down. But when she comes in, I mean, she's, like, the happiest person on the planet.
But she isn't even, like, intimidated after he threatens her. She's just like, man, what an asshole. Whatever.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly what she's like, and how she shuts the door and, like, doesn't, like, pull it closed. She just kind of, jerks it closed and then walks out, and the door not really slams, but kind of shuts loudly.
Yeah, I like that she wasn't afraid of him, though. She, like you said, she was just frustrated with how ridiculous he was acting. And also, this is the start from moment one that Hot has any interaction with, these people, this group, she's excluded. That's the whole point. And such a big part of her character development is, from the very beginning, being an outsider. That's so deeply ingrained in her character. It doesn't matter how capable she is or how hard she tries. Like, part of her journey is to come, from that place of just being ostracized almost.
In the finale, when Doc is kind of like, here's what's going on, and then she gets, like, deputized as a Black Badge agent, she's just like, finally, thank you. Like, this is what I've wanted the entire time. And then it gets taken away. But for that short moment, she's real happy.
Yeah, it's a huge backslide in season 2 for that theme in her character.
But you see, it's kind of like we said last week with Wynonna, when people tell you for so long that you're a horrible person, you kind of start to believe it. Like, Nicole starts this out as this rookie cop who thinks she's great. Like, we know that she did really well in the academy, and Nedley recruits her really hard to come to Purgatory. And then, like, this entire season, this entire however many weeks, she just keeps getting beat down and treated like an outsider, and it really starts to mess with her confidence.
Yeah, which is why early in season 2, I mean, she's basically done. She reaches her point, until Nedley brings up that he's grooming her, essentially, and then she has a different view from then on.
He gives her, like, a sense of, like, purpose and meaning, so she's like, all right, I can work towards something now.
Exactly, and I think it's a purpose that she wasn't necessarily expecting, and it was definitely a surprise to her, which is really cool.
Because she thinks that she got recruited to write parking tickets, and she wants to be hunting demons, and Nedley's like, no, the parking tickets are a part of the demon hunting. Like, you're an important part in this. It might not look the same, but you're just as important as the fancy pants agent man is.
Exactly. Well, because people can't find out. I mean, she's there to, like, literally keep order.
So after this scene, we go to the trailer park where Levi is telling Bobo about how Red got, like, burned from the inside out from grabbing Peacemaker. And Bobo's like, no shit, I told you guys not to go after the gun. There was a reason for it.
Well, and he says that Revenants can't touch Peacemaker, but we find out later in this season that he can. So it's just another piece of the Bobo puzzle that, he really isn't like all the other Revenants. And Levi, I mean, he's a weasel, but he also seems so much more human than a lot of the other Revenants. It just makes me wonder if maybe he didn't get sent to hell as many times as they did. I mean, I don't think we're going to find out. I think Levi's character development is done. I don't think we're going to have a flashback with him. But it's just, it's one of those things that it made me wonder.
Well, I think that Bobo can't hold Peacemaker because, like, it does burn his hand in that episode. I think he's just so into proving a point that he's like, all right, I can take the pain for a while just to, like, scare the shit out of Wynonna.
Maybe. Yeah, he's so determined because it burns him, like you say, but he doesn't vibrate. But I think he's just stronger than the other ones, both in, to some degree, physically, but also just his willpower.
Yeah, he definitely is, like, mentally a lot stronger than all of them because they're all kind of, I mean, in my opinion, a bunch of morons, but whatever.
Most of them, yes. I agree. That's an accurate assessment.
And then he, like, kicks the shit out of Levi. I think it's to get everyone's attention so that he can like make his point, which is
I honestly don't know.
well, I mean,
I just watched it this morning, and I'm like, oh yeah, I guess he did.
So he did that because everybody like comes out to like watch, and then he like very loudly like tells Levi, but everybody, that they're gonna dig up, you know, something, aka Clutie's demon kids, and the seven are gonna deal with Wynonna because they've already taken out, you know, however many heirs. I guess at this point he's just like, all right, these morons aren't gonna listen to me, so I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna contract out Wynonna's death to Killer Miller, and he sends Levi to go and work on that with Doc.
Who they credit with killing Jesse James, which is just a cool. I know that most of these are historical people, but that's just a really big name to pull out.
It was, and Robert Ford, like, oh, he was a horrible shot. Like, obviously, it wasn't him. The show really does take history and plays with it a little bit, which is really cool. So then we go to the apartment above Shorty's, right, where Doc's broken in to try and steal something.
But that external wall has been fixed.
It has been fixed. And you see her little kitchenette, and I just want to make the observation that there must be an IKEA in the big city, because all of that stuff is from IKEA. I recognized it, you know, because I'm an IKEA bot.
IKEA is the best.
IKEA is amazing.
Where did Doc get that hoodie that he's wearing? Where did Doc get the hoodie? And when he takes the ledger and has to put it somewhere, why does he not put it in the hoodie pockets and instead puts it not in his pants pockets either, but literally in his pants? And he doesn't take it out. That's because that's where he pulls it out of when he throws the book down to the demon too. Like, does he not know how pockets work?
He's like a kangaroo.
Can someone draw that for us? Doc as a kangaroo with Waverly's ledger in his front pouch. That would be great. That's our first t-shirt, guys.
Oh, man. One thing that's interesting in this scene as well is, I don't know, I think it stays on long enough that a lot of people would have noticed it the first time. And there's definitely other kind of clue drops, pretty big ones in this episode about who he is. But, I mean, he pulls out a photo that says Doc Holliday. And it's very clearly him.
Well, he pulls that out, and I think he puts that one in a pocket and like separate from the book, and because he's not gonna. Well, I think he just doesn't want any pictures of him because he's trying to hide his identity. So
exactly,
like, he'll keep that one to himself. His reaction to Champ's jeans was my reaction to Champ's jeans.
Yeah, but then he still wears them.
I mean, he needs more clothes, so
those jeans are awful, though. They're so awful.
Not a fan.
So he and Wynonna both draw on each other because she runs into him, and she hits him she grazes him, right? Because his ear's bleeding.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which isn't that what happened to? It's interesting just knowing what we know about Peacemaker. Not that it glowed, but you know, it wouldn't. That's what happened to Rosita too, I think, when Peacemaker shot her. Was it grazed her ear?
True, Peacemaker did not want to necessarily take Doc out. And I like that Doc didn't want to take Wynonna out. He just wanted to get away.
Yeah.
And I like her reaction, because she's like, oh man, he was fast. And I was like, well, not exactly. You kind of just like stood in the doorway. Like, let him pass. And then had like a few second delay, and you're like, oh shit, right, the gun. And then you're like, oh man, he was real fast. I'm like, no, you were just kind of slow in that case.
I mean, he also is like the greatest gunslinger in the West.
I think that was just another clue drop for us, the audience, as to who he was.
Oh yeah, and I mean, I like Wynonna pausing in the doorway, like she's not armed anymore, and he is. But
and then when at the homestead, when she tells Waverly, you know, that they have to leave, and Waverly's like, but my yoga mat is at the apartment. She's just so innocent and sweet.
Why can't she go back just to pick up her shit?
Because it's a funny line. Come on. That's why.
All right, fair enough.
And then we're at the homestead, which is where we learn about the amylite and how it's a mineral that wards off evil spirits. And that's, you know, that's why they built the homestead where they did, and why the revenants couldn't come on the property. And it's interesting to me too, like we saw the homestead last week and it was like falling apart, run down, awful. And, you know, one episode later, like it's run down a little bit certainly, but it's nowhere near as in as bad of shape as it was in the last episode.
It's just another indication that they were filmed apart.
Oh yeah. My family had a cabin in Minnesota and we didn't go there for like 2 years. And when we went there because we were going to sell it, it was just like a decrepit shack at that point. You know, like a few years without any maintenance, like took it out. And it was like a similar, like kind of rudimentary build as like the homestead. Like the homestead would not be standing.
No. Yeah, and they say there's no running water, but there's a sink. I guess that she just means that the water isn't hooked up. I don't know, maybe the well went dry.
Yeah, I wrote that down too, because she said they built a house with no running water.
And
but
yeah,
there's
there
a
is
sink.
And also,
I do like that there was the generator, so we find out why there's power.
Yeah, because that was my, like, before that generator line, I was like, but I don't understand how there's power to the building. Also, do they run the house off of, like, a gas generator all the time? That's ridiculously inefficient. They would be filling that thing up with gas all the time. I'm sorry, I can't turn off my brain.
I mean, I doubt they would run power lines out there. It's so far.
The things that we all focus on are just interesting and entertaining and really speak to who we are as people.
We're worried about their bills.
Well, and I'm still obsessed with the weather because Dolls is in pants, t-shirt, and a jacket, and Wynonna and Waverly in tank tops, and Waverly's wearing her shorts. Like, I don't know. I just don't get it. Although, I guess maybe Dolls is just cold-blooded.
Oh, man.
Oh, man.
Wow.
That was... All right, moving on from that. So, Dolls tells him to look for something occultish. That might be the reason that the Revenants were able to get on the homestead. And that was pretty much all I had for that scene.
That was pretty specifically vague. Like, look for something bad. You know. Oh, okay, great, thanks.
Okay, I do want to point out one of the things that I didn't notice the first time because I thought it was the same drawings that she had in Shorty's, you know, with the family, and then she also had the drawing of Waverly and Bobo with her, you know, being her imaginary friend. But the the drawing that Dolls hands her this time, it says Wynonna and me, and I almost cried.
It was really sweet.
Oh, I didn't notice that. I'm gonna have to go back and look at it and have a moment.
And I liked in that scene, too, how, and it's one of those things that it just seems like a throwaway line, and after seeing the full 2 seasons, it almost has more weight, or at least makes you think more that Wynonna says, she's talking about their mother, and how, you know, she'd made the wind chimes, and how their mother had just taken off. It had just left one day. And, you know, obviously she knows more about it than she's insinuating, or than we're led to believe because she knew where she was all along. I just thought that was interesting, and the scene just seemed different now that we know that.
Well, we don't know that she knew all along. We just know that she at some point knew, or like now knows.
Oh my god!
I'm just.
You're right. We didn't know that she knew all along. She knew at some point in time, and presumably she knew during that scene. I suspect. But I guess we don't know. Perhaps we'll find out in season 3.
I imagine we will. I just like have headcanoned a whole bunch of different scenarios, so that's why I said that.
I know, it was one of those, you can think that or you can be right. I know how this podcast works. Please continue.
Okay, pause for a second. We skipped a huge scene.
I was just gonna go back to that.
Okay.
With Bobo and Doc, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Nope, you're good.
Doc returns to his trailer that now has Traitor spray painted on the door, and Bobo's just chilling outside, and Doc's got like a cloth to his ear because Wynonna grazed that. And Doc lies about not having anything from the Earps, so I found that pretty interesting.
Yep.
And then what happened is that Bobo gives Doc the task to summon Killer Miller, and send him after Wynonna, and then once Wynonna's gone, to bring Peacemaker to him because none of his revenants, can grab it. So he contracts this out to Doc to contract out to Killer Miller.
Yeah, because none of them could have done that. He's the only one that's human with the blood.
Why do you think Doc kept that information from Bobo? Is he just, he's just crafty and is hesitant about spilling too much information, or is this him already protecting the Earps? Another example of it, like he covered them from the tree line.
I don't really think Doc is completely sure of what he's doing right now. I think he's trying to keep all of his options open, and it's highly likely he didn't have time to read that thing. I would just think from a strategy perspective that he would want to read it first and see what he was handing over.
And I also think that, like, morally and ethically, he's not necessarily on board with the Revenants, and his face kind of says it at the end of the episode. But he needs something from Bobo, but I don't think he necessarily wants to hurt the Earps at this point, even though, he does ultimately send an assassin after Waverly. But that was kind of at that point for self-preservation, because he wasn't going to go into the dark again. So after this, Levi and Doc kind of go for a walk, and it's pretty interesting. So Levi asks Doc if he's even mortal anymore because they need mortal blood. And Levi kind of gets all up in Doc's face for switching sides. Like, he isn't necessarily happy that Doc's on their side because he thinks, it's despicable that he flipped on Wyatt.
Yeah, because they talk about, we know who you rode alongside of, and you were his right-hand man. There's a few instances in this episode where it's pretty clearly referenced that all of them know who he is.
Yeah, I just, Levi's, he's kind of a moron, but I found it interesting that he seems to have, morally, he's like, what you're doing right now is some shit. And, Wyatt wouldn't approve of it. So I feel like maybe Levi was maybe a more innocent bystander that got taken out by Wyatt in some way.
Well, I think if you think about the time that they're from, it's more likely, just in general, that they all kind of had a code. Even they say, there's honor among thieves. They're loyal to the people they're loyal to. And he thought that was kind of a slap in the face. Because I'm sure whoever it was that Levi ran with, good or bad, he would have been loyal to them. And so for Doc to do that, it's just against the code of the time.
Yeah, that makes sense. So they go and they head over to Killer Miller's abandoned barn that has a cave in it for some reason. Like
you do.
Looks like a mining shaft.
In a barn.
I'm not saying it makes sense.
My brain got super nitpicky on this episode. I apologize for anyone who wants to punch me.
Thank you.
So
Pod
Doc
punch.
Barnsplain. I remember when I saw this, when Michelle and I were talking about this episode for one of the first times, I didn't know that was a barn. That's not what barns look like around here. It looked like an airplane hangar to me. But she was like, no, it's a barn, you dumbass. I was like, oh, okay, thanks.
I am an expert on barns because I work in
doesn't
the
matter
agricultural
why.
industry.
Nope. I'm an expert on barns. Cut it there.
So Doc goes and he smears blood on the door frame of the
for
mine,
reasons.
the frame of the mine for reasons.
For reasons unknown, but I guess it doesn't matter.
And then Killer Miller kind of starts trying to suck Doc into the mine, even though he asks for the target, and then he's just like, but while you contemplate answering, I'm just gonna try to kill you anyway.
He gave him more time than the security guard.
Much more time.
True.
So even though this is kind of fast and it's it seems all about self-preservation for him, there's a couple really big things going on in this scene One is, and I don't know that they meant for this to occur. I bet they probably did, but there's a great deal of religious symbolism in this scene, specifically Jewish symbolism, because it comes from Passover. You know, you put the blood on the door, the blood of the lamb, and you'll get passed over. You won't get killed when the angel of death like goes through the city. And that's exactly what happens here. He puts the blood on the door, you know, and he gives the kind of the command of like, go after these people, and he gets passed over. Anybody?
That's super cool. That never even occurred to me. My theology degree is very disappointed in me right now. But that is super cool. That's a really good point.
That's a really good catch.
So when you're talking about the powers that be, you know, I mean,
yeah,
it's just an interesting thought. And literally, I thought of it like 10 seconds ago because I have a whole other point about this scene. That wasn't it.
What's your other
continue.
point? Yeah, we're listening.
I'm just kind of impressed with myself.
I'm very impressed with you.
I'm impressed. I would have never thought of that.
Oh, also, and I'll just insert it here because of the very specific and very kind of impending doom sort of situation, even though it's applicable to the entire episode. I think there's a lot of symbolism in this episode regarding light and dark as good versus evil. And I know that Doc has a very specific, very practical reason for not going back into the dark, but I think it's also a character illustration.
Damn, BP, you're on fire today.
Why are we even here?
I don't know. Like, I'm just sitting here getting upset about the mechanics of a broken tap, and you're over here just getting real deep.
Well, I think it's interesting because it's such a demonstration of his character development. He's so close to getting pulled back in. But every opportunity that he gets to fight it off, like, he is a good man. He's in the light. And it's just, I just thought it was very interesting.
He is a good man, and no matter how he sees himself, everything about his character is telling us that Waverly is right, and that he is trustworthy. She really is a good judge of character, except for Champ.
That's always an exception.
Always the caveat. Yeah, exactly.
Caveat.
Champ
there
is the
you
worst.
Go.
Words bleed. You're talking about symbolism and the Bible, and I'm like, oh, I thought it was neat that Levi was like, what? But what do you mean that book was the little sisters? But she's so nice. That it's paraphrasing.
He said that sweet little thing.
Yeah.
And I wrote that down too.
Everyone loves Waverly. Even the Revenants. And he's like, oh man, like, killing Wynonna, that's one thing. But, like, really? You're going to send her after Waverly? I just thought that was neat.
You must really hate the Earps.
Yeah.
Well, it also might kind of describe something about him. And like you said, I mean, we're done with Levi overall in the context of the entire show. But it might say a little bit more about his character as well. Because I even said earlier, like, he's pretty bad at being evil. But it's almost like there's no need for innocent bystanders, you know? They need to get rid of Wynonna. That's a self-preservation tactic. But, like, why Waverly? You know what I mean? There's no point in getting rid of her.
I agree with you
until she's the next heir, but then they wouldn't be able to resurrect the people that she's taken out.
Well, I agree with you on that, but at the end of the episode, I mean, Levi was doing self-preservation again at the end when Bobo was up again, or at some point in the episode, doesn't Bobo say something along the lines of, don't you want to get out of here, and, like, I don't remember what the line was, but, like, be able to, like, eat everyone or something.
Don't you want to be able to leave the Ghost River Triangle and snack on everyone? And I was like, that's really? Like, are they vampires? No, they just like ladyfingers, I guess.
Yep.
And hands. Which is weird.
So I feel like that moment, and maybe that was just, like, Levi's, like, self-preservation kicking in again, because he doesn't seem, like, he's not a good guy because of, like, the things he does, but I feel like deep down, he has more morals and ethics than most of the other Revenants.
I think you're right. I think he's just trying to fit in. I think, and especially what we find out about him and his relationship with Fish. Like, now, let me say, I may be projecting, but, you know, he's just trying to stay under the radar and act like he fits in so nobody notices that he's different. So, you know, Bobo's like, isn't this what you want? He's like, yep, that's definitely what I want. Yep, that's it. He's just trying to get by without drawing attention to himself, and to try and fit in and seem like he's just like the rest of the Revenants, and that's what the rest of the Revenants want. So that's what Levi wants in a different way. He's a people pleaser like Waverly is. It just looks different.
Agreed.
Or not.
Sorry, no, I totally agree.
Agreed.
I like that I went super deep on like the lamest character ever.
I love Levi. I think he's a really good character. I mean, he had to die, but I think his arc was pretty interesting because you see him like trying to fit in. He's trying to be bad. And then his character arc ends where he's just kind of like, oh, I'm like with the one person who knows the real me.
Yep. And I can be that person now. I can just be who I am.
Even though he looked like a charcoal briquette at that moment. Anyway.
Oh, that's fine.
It was so gross.
So we go to the homestead, and Wynonna has a great line where she says that they need to look for something strange and hard to explain, like her relationship with Champ. And I just cheered for a moment.
She never lets up. She just does not get it. She really thinks that Waverly is so great. And it's like, ugh, why are you lowering yourself to be with that boy man? Great consistency with the sister relationship there.
Yep.
Well, and Waverly throws it right back, because apparently Wynonna dated Phil, the guy with this satanic face tattoo that loved Norwegian death metal.
I mean, to be fair, Norwegian death metal is amazing. Like, I get it, but that's a fair point.
I feel like the satanic face tattoo is the problem.
Why do you have to be so judgmental? Yeah. Just let him be happy. Let Phil be Phil. So they're interacting and the lights go down. But it was like, what, 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon? Why was Waverly carrying a flashlight before the sun went away?
Crickets?
I mean...
because she needed it for the plot?
Because she was making casseroles and she dropped them off. That's the reason why Waverly does anything. She made the casseroles. That's why.
So before the power goes down, we hit the bit with the door frame with the heights marked, and I know we already talked about it, but this is our first instance of oblivious Wynonna, where Waverly is obviously just like, oh man, I'm not on there. Like she's like, hinting to Wynonna that like, her childhood, was not what Wynonna thinks it was. And she's just like, oh, probably just washed away or wiped away, whatever.
Because that's a thing.
Oblivious Wynonna.
Oblivious. Yeah, because hers would have been the newest one. Like if they did them at different points in time, Waverly should have been the most recent. Although they probably did them at the same time.
Yeah, no,
Sorry.
you do them all at the same time.
Excuse me.
I say from my extensive experience with having children.
And homesteading.
Which is the fact that I don't have them at all.
So the power goes down, and they're both kind of like, well, this is weird. And then Dolls calls because he's figured out that it's not whatever mineral he said at first, it's ammonite, which sounds pretty much exactly the same as what he said initially.
He said ammonite.
Ammonite, yeah, so one letter. And that they need to find a talisman made out of like vertebrae and other crap, and that's just gross.
Can I please just point out that one of them is night and one of them is light? Just, there you go.
What?
Like nighttime and the light. It's like literally. No. Okay.
You're just like all up in the symbolism. You just need to keep pointing it out because
sorry.
Monica and I
I feel like even when I did, it didn't work though.
Michelle and I have had a combined 13 hours of sleep this week, so we're a little off. I thought it was interesting that the talisman was bound with iron twine, and it made me wonder if the Iron Witch had anything to do with it there. Just that kind of an indicator to iron being a thing in the lore.
But why would the Iron Witch help Bobo? You know what? We can't know that, so I'm just gonna stop.
It was just like, I'm not saying that she did, or if it's tied like, oh well, if you bound it with iron, then the Iron Witch can't find it. like, I'm just saying, is there a connection there? That's all. Or maybe just everyone in purgatory is anemic.
So on the phone call, Wynonna, tells Dolls that it's suddenly nighttime, and he's like, "Well, shit, all right." And a little bit of a correction from last week. He says that he'll be there in 30 minutes. So to all of you who pointed out that he says that, congratulations, you were right.
Yes, thank you so much.
We were fixated on the sign. And we realized the 30-minute thing, but it was so important to keep going that we are not going to stop.
So, yes, we said the wrong thing, and we have been corrected. Anyway, so Dolls tells them to stay near a light source, because he suddenly seems to know what's going on, even though he doesn't know anything about the Revenants.
Right? Like, it's like Giles opening a book and being like, oh, here's the solution. Like, how does that? Okay, fine, sure, yeah, okay.
I mean, yay, plot. But I was like, all right, way to know how that's happening. And then I think Wynonna even asks him. So the lights are out. She gets off the phone with Dolls, and then she, refuses to tell Waverly what's going on. And it didn't quite make sense to me why she would do that, because, Waverly knows about Revenants.
She's unnecessarily trying to protect her from a thing that's attacking her. And she just doesn't realize yet that keeping her in the dark isn't... Ignoring it doesn't mean it won't happen. She needs to be kept in the loop so she can protect herself.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it actually kind of puts her in more danger because she doesn't understand what's going on. So they go out, start a fire, and they're hanging out in the light of the fire until Killer Miller is just like, nope, gonna blow that right out. They rush into the... Do they rush into the house?
I think so, yeah.
Well, Waverly goes into the house and Wynonna goes to the generator.
Thank you, yes.
Earp's lane.
And she loses the gun.
Well, Killer Miller just, knocks it out of her hand and is like, bye.
That's like Bobo. He has that power, too.
Yeah, so he does that and starts making his way towards the house, but Wynonna, forgets about the gun, and she runs in there beforehand and tells... Well, first she doesn't tell Waverly what's going on, and she tells her to hide, to stay away from the dark.
In the closet.
In the closet.
Under the bed.
Subtle.
So, yeah, closet, subtle. But basically find the darkest place in the house to hide from the dark.
Which doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, she says, stay in the light, now go to these places.
Which, I mean, panic and all that, but, excellent.
Also just Wynonna, though.
Yes, it is very Wynonna. And then she does have to fill Waverly in on, what's happening. And we get another instance of one of our favorite ships, Wayshot.
Wayshot!
So Wynonna tells Waverly about a Revenant who's, sucking up the light and is after them. And we have a flashback where we see Red's derpy face. And then we see Killer Miller. And Wynonna tells Waverly that it's one of the seven, and she has just, oh man, such an amazing Waverly moment. She's like, oh, that shit ticket thinks he's getting in the house as she picks up her shotgun. Oh man. Much like Wynonna, I love when Waverly says shit ticket.
It's a really great moment and a really great line. And how she delivers it is great. And yeah, Wayshot. That's one of the best pairings on the show.
She always has the funniest, word combos.
Oh, yeah. Shit strumpet.
Yeah.
Shit strumpet is really good. Although, Chris has said that before. She says random shit like that all the time. And I was like, wait a minute. Did someone hear her say that?
Basically, if you put the word shit in front of any word and say it with, a lot of, meaning behind it, it becomes some sort of insult. So there you go. So right after this, we get a super classic horror movie moment where Wynonna goes to fetch the gun in the barn, and then when she comes out, Waverly's watching her, and we get the it's behind you moment.
Right. How does Waverly, all he had to do was kill her. She was right there.
Oh, my notes, I just have, how is he a shadow assassin? He is the worst assassin ever. He moves in super slow motion, and like he'll get within a foot of his target and just like stand there and like
He's just lurking.
menace. He'll stand there and like menacingly, and like kind of maybe like say like taunt them a little bit, but they're like, all right, well, I'm just gonna go over there where you're not, so bye.
Was she standing in even like a shred of light?
No, it's completely dark.
Yeah.
He's not very good, so I mean, whatever, Killer Miller. I guess I'm gonna guess that you were lucky when you killed Jesse James. Lucky shot.
And then we find out that Waverly is the one that buried the talisman, so she has to go dig it up. Did you guys notice she was digging it up with a tire iron?
They didn't have a shovel.
Yeah, because it's at the bottom of the fucking well.
Making shovel sounds.
Making shovel sounds. I mean, and why does she, I think it was a tire iron. I could totally, maybe it was a crowbar, but there just all of these random tools, tools laying around the homestead, and like 0 shovels. For Christmas, all of the characters are getting shovels. That's what they need to have.
So in Pretty Little Liars, like the murder weapon for one of the things was a shovel, and the creators would put shovels just like fucking everywhere, and it was hilarious. Maybe in like Purgatory there's just tire irons lying around everywhere, which is why they're always using them as weapons or shovels.
And we find out that, the talisman is buried next to Pikachu the hamster, and then Waverly makes the sign of the cross, which I thought was cute, because I had no idea that they were Catholic. That's, yeah, anyway. But sure, yeah.
And then Dolls shows up, and Waverly's still trying to dig it up, and Wynonna takes a shot at Killer Miller, and it ricochets off of him. And Waverly gets to show off to Dolls, because she's like, oh, Killer Miller, it must be him because he wore like an iron plate as armor. And and Dolls is like, damn, your research is impeccable. Which is what finally gets her to be a consultant without a code name or flamethrower for Black Badge.
And nobody gets a flamethrower, at least
Bobo
when they ask
eventually.
for it.
You need to be a revenant to have a flamethrower.
No, you need to be Boba Del Rey to get a flamethrower.
No fair.
So, while Waverly continues to dig up Pikachu with the crowbar.
It takes a long time.
Have
you ever tried to dig up an occultish talisman with a crowbar or a tire iron? It's very time consuming.
Well, so Dolls, suddenly having all of the confidence in Wynonna and Peacemaker, is like, you're the only one that can do this. So Wynonna gets a flare, and I guess Killer Miller is just like drawn to like sucking up all of the light. So he like follows the flare until he realizes, oh, wait a second, I need to be killing somebody.
He's like my cat. Like, you wave a laser pointer in front of him and he's like, what? So that's basically what she did.
Which is funny because he took out the entire fire from like who knows where, but this flare is a problem.
This flare is beating him. And he's just like, all right, well, you know what? I'm just going to go kill your sister and we'll deal with this flare situation afterwards.
And I like that Waverly is so... she's equal parts confused, but probably deep down, yeah, that's right. Someone was after me. I'm more important than the heir was. That was kind of interesting. How could you not think that?
Well, I like that Killer Miller is supposed to be this amazing assassin. Clearly not. He wears the plate of armor on his chest, right in front, and he's like, oh, you're not the target, so I'm just gonna turn my back to the person with the one gun in the world that can kill me so that she can shoot me where there's no armor. Like, maybe like face her and back away, because nobody else can kill you. Face her, back away so she can't shoot you, and then get close to Waverly and kill her.
Unlike Doc Holliday, this Revenant is not really that concerned with the long game.
Yeah, I don't think he's got a lot of sense of self-preservation. He seems to just be so tied to this whole mission thing. And we don't know exactly what happened to him. What did he say? He moved like a shadow and then he became one. I don't know if that had to do with how many times he's been back and forth to hell, or the way he lived his life or whatever, but he doesn't seem to have, an ounce of humanity in him. I mean, Levi even says, like, he's as far away from human as you can get. So we don't really know what caused that, but even during the flashback, he already looked like that then. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
And the special effects when Wynonna shoots him were really cool, like with the light coming out of him. I thought that was really neat.
It was like Zeus threw lightning bolts through him. That's what I thought
like
of.
that. Yeah. And it didn't, like, I feel kind of stupid, but I didn't realize until way later than I should that he was glowing because he was, like, absorbing the light.
Did not realize that.
I didn't realize that either. Good job.
I thought you guys said it during the podcast. Someone did. Oh, whatever. Yeah.
Oh, you mean like, not necessarily with with respect to these gunshots? Just like in general when he was like sucking up all the light.
Right, exactly. And so then she shot him, and so you see like the light kind of spilling out of him.
The light is leaking because he doesn't have blood. Oh. Genius.
See, my mind just went to like Zeus with the lightning bolts, and I just kind of stuck there. So
I was just like, that looks really cool.
That looks cool. I wonder what religious symbolism is here. Like, you went even deeper, but I was just, I don't know. Like, I'm somewhere in the middle of Zeus lightning bolts, and this is very much like.
So this is why the three of us need to be doing this podcast, because together we might be able to figure some shit out, but alone,
maybe
we're just.
It's just gonna take us a really long time.
So he like gets shot, and I guess he starts bleeding light, and he like just turns around like, holy shit, you shot me.
How dare you, even though this is your entire purpose on this planet. How dare you?
And we get kind of Wynonna's first attempt at like a catchphrase, while taking out her revenants. So I think she says lights out, bitch, and bravo, love it.
Oh, this I think was the point where I realized, not because I just really hadn't thought it through that much before, that they have to be shot in the head.
Mm-hmm. Just shooting him in the chest didn't do it. It has to be in the head. It's like a vampire with a stake to the heart.
Well, right. She says that when she
spoiler alert,
the twirling gun thing. She says that she's the only one that can take him out with Peacemaker with like a shot between the eyes or something like that.
And is that just something that she learned from the lore, like from her dad, or I'm just curious. It's just.
He told them a lot of creepy stories, so.
He was not a good father.
They were sitting around when he was like talking, like training Willa, so he obviously had to tell her that. Otherwise, he's really just setting her out to fail. Well, he probably would do that. But I'd guess that he told him. So she puts him down, and then it becomes daytime again, and everything seems to be okay, and Waverly's still digging up the talisman. But once again, Levi, trying to run with the cool kids, decides to attack Wynonna with an axe.
And Dawes has that great line about an axe being used for anything other than wood maintenance is a felony, I think. Like, are you the axe police? Are you just a really big fan of The Wizard of Oz and the Tin Man have an axe? I don't know. I found it really funny.
I doubt he brought that with him, so it was probably sitting around, and I'd just like to point out even that would probably be a better tool to dig up the ground than the tire iron / crowbar.
Yes. And so Dawes easily beats him because everybody beats up Levi. That guy just doesn't stand a chance. And Waverly and Dawes tell Wynonna to put him down, but Wynonna's like, no. I need to send the most unnecessary message to your boss. I'm gonna take all of you, not all the revenants, she doesn't say. She says, like, you and the revenants who, like, took Willa and, like, killed my dad. So, not planning on killing all 77 of the revenants? Or just poor phrasing?
That's just not her immediate goal is the 7, and then we'll see what happens after.
Priorities.
All right, fair enough. And we get the great line where Levi says, "You're just a girl," and we get Wynonna's line, "I am the girl with the big ass gun." Such a good moment.
Classic.
she's starting to come to feel like she is the heir. Like it's kind of, I don't know, one of the first indications that she feels like this is maybe what she should be doing and what she's here for.
Yeah, she kind of says it when she gets into these situations, because she said it at the end of the pilot too. Like, I'm the Earp heir, or she said, I'm going to put you down like it's my job, and I'm starting to think it is.
Yeah, like every time she puts down one of the 7, she gains a little bit more confidence and acceptance that this is what she's supposed to be doing. So after Wynonna has this exchange with Levi, Waverly finally finds the talisman, and she does the most hilarious job throwing it across the border.
Like, did she really need that much of a wind up? Like, that was...
It was like 10 feet away.
Did she... I thought she was a cheerleader. Did she play softball? I mean, I know that's not how you throw a softball, but...
I don't even know if...
That's how I throw a softball.
I don't know if, like, that even helped, but... And how far did she have to throw it? Because, like, Levi goes flying, like, a good distance. Did she have to throw that, like, the length of a football field?
Yeah, I thought they could be at the fence, which was, like, 10 feet away.
So maybe, like, the force of...
Someone will tell us, I'm sure.
Of the Amalite just, like, really shot him super far. I mean, I get that, like, it's a great effect watching him fly out.
It was just great. Yeah. Wynonna and Dolls didn't buy it, but I did. And I laughed. And even their reaction to her while she continued to be like, come on, that was hilarious. Like, it really was.
We were all Waverly.
We were. And she's starting to feel like she belongs, like she gets to play, she gets to play with the grown-ups and impress, like, her sister and her sister's friend. It's just, I don't know. She's just so excited to be a part of this curse that she's immersed herself in for so long.
So after this, we go to Downtown Purgatory, where Dolls and Wynonna have probably the most casual conversation we've ever seen them have. And Dolls kind of opens up about his past a little bit and admits that he wasn't the one that blew up Maldito. He was desperately trying to stop it. So that gives us kind of a little insight that he isn't this giant jackass that we think he is at this point.
Just like everybody else, trying to make the best of the bad situations that he's in.
Yeah.
Yeah, and until Dolls gets told, or until they find out that, Black Badge is seemingly corrupt and then doesn't even exist in theory, he's just ever the good soldier. You know what I mean? And he has to do what he can do within those parameters. But he is gonna follow orders.
He's Riley Finn.
He is Riley Finn. Totally fair.
So Dolls tells Wynonna to go home and, like he wanted a safe place, so why don't you go, to the homestead and make it a home. So Waverly and Wynonna go, and now that it's actually dark, they have another cookout, which isn't really a cookout. They're just drinking around a fire.
That's my favorite kind of cookout.
We get more reinforcement that Wynonna hates the color pink. Because Waverly wants to decorate the house pink, and no thank you.
Nope. That's me, like, fist pumping, like, stop her!
And Doc's out replacing the mailbox so enthusiastically.
And Wynonna's impression of Doc saying that it was defiled by hooligans.
Oh, it was great.
Defiled by hooligans. Like, so good. Hilarious. The show mixes humor and, danger and drama and all of that stuff so well. It's so funny while it's all of those other things, which is one of the reasons why I like it so much.
Do you think that his kind of out of nowhere prioritization of fixing that mailbox just because he wanted to be close to them?
Or maybe he felt a little bit guilty for, attacking Waverly with a revenant?
Maybe he was just checking to make sure that they ended up okay.
Maybe the entire point of the show is guilt? I don't know.
Oh, no.
Which is not what the entire point of Person of Interest is. Just saying.
Just put your microphone down and walk away slowly, man.
Sorry, that was a very traumatic day for me. So Waverly points out that Doc's wearing Champ's jeans, and Wynonna's reaction, priceless. She's just so outraged.
This episode kind of ends a little bit like the pilot did, with them objectifying a random dude. Like, because, Waverly does say he looks good in Champ's jeans, and Wynonna makes several comments that indicate that she also thinks that Doc looks very good. And then Waverly has that funny little throwaway line about how, don't you think he's a little old for you? Like, maybe a little.
Sweetie, you have no idea.
Yeah.
And Waverly, I know last week we talked about how Waverly didn't hold what happened to her family like against Wynonna, but here she admits that she did kind of blame Wynonna for it. But I mean, she may maybe she blamed her, but also moved past it because I mean, blaming her wasn't going to really do much at that point. But now she
it's certainly something that she never would have expressed.
No, she would never have. But now she feels guilty, A, for blaming Wynonna, and B, for actually being the reason that they were in that situation to begin with. But I don't, it was nobody's fault. I mean, it was Bobo's fault, really. Because, Waverly didn't know what she was doing, and Wynonna was trying to do the best that she could. So, I mean, it's nobody's fault.
I'm blaming Ward. He was the worst.
Well, yeah.
He really was pretty bad.
And then we go to our final scene with Doc walking back into the trailer park, and him walking back into that trailer park like the fucking Terminator looks so awesome.
It really does.
He arrives in Bobo's fire circle, and I mean, not to get political, but I just imagine them all holding tiki torches in that circle. And I had to have a chuckle, and then I was like, that's actually not a horrible metaphor analogy there. But Levi looks like he got his ass kicked once again, and Bobo tells him that Levi spilled the beans on Doc. I'm assuming not putting something of Wynonna's and sending Killer Miller after Waverly, which we know that Bobo wouldn't exactly be keen on. But he doesn't hold it against Doc really.
Well, because he still has a use.
Yeah, he still needs Doc, and I mean, he's once again using Levi, Levi as the sacrificial lamb to make a point.
It really seems stupid to me that he would ask Levi to be the one to kill Wynonna. There's no one else more competent in your group to maybe do that? Or did he just want him to fail so he could get all of his boys to rally around him? Is that why he sent a bad person to do it?
Yeah, maybe he was the most expendable.
Maybe.
If he knew he was going to make an example of them.
Or was Levi like a little annoying puppy that just wants Bobo's attention, and he's like, fine, just go fucking kill the heir, whatever. Leave me alone.
Maybe.
So he tells Doc to drag Levi across the line in order to prove that he's on their side, because if Doc isn't evil, and you can see that he's really uncomfortable doing it, but doing that to somebody, I guess, is a sign that Doc's willing to do whatever it takes for him to get his revenge, I guess.
Yeah, all he cares about is his revenge, and chaining Levi up to that wheel thing, it's a means to an end. He'll do whatever he has to do to get revenge. He thinks that there's nothing he won't do, but I mean, there are lines that he won't cross. We see later, but this isn't one of them. This is worth it to him.
Yeah.
I was wondering who built that structure, because it looks like it was built for a very specific purpose.
Well, it couldn't have been the Revenants.
It must have been some of the human familiars, but I just, was looking going, that seems like something they do a lot, and they can't go over there.
I don't think they bought that one. I don't think that was something that was purchased at IKEA in the big city.
I don't know. The Ghost River Triangle IKEA might carry slightly different.
That's true. That's very true. I thought it was interesting too. Bobo makes his dramatic speech to rally his men, and he throws off his coat. Okay, and he's wearing no shirt. I don't know. It just amused me.
It was just so dramatic.
So dramatic and cheesy, and it worked. I'm not saying it didn't work, because I think that it did. But like, oh, I'm gonna throw off my lady, I was gonna say Lady Bobo, my Lady Gaga coat, but here I am shirtless, and that's gonna make people take me more seriously. I don't know.
It's
I
so
mean,
they could show his back glowing. I mean, he was so like
Sure.
not a revenant before that moment. You know what I mean? And then it showed like, I mean, that not the biggest one we've seen
Yes,
that
and
was all over his back instead of just like on his face?
it's the only one I think that we've seen of any of them that it wasn't just on their faces, right?
yeah.
Yeah, I think that was the first time we had seen that. And again, back to those symbols, they're on the murder board and they're
Yes.
inside the gun. All
Yep.
that stuff is linked.
It's all tied together.
I have a theory that he probably didn't have a shirt on because if he took it off, it would mess up his hair. Just like from a filming standpoint. I'm not even kidding.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I mean, also, it's the jacket looks like it's pretty warm. He probably just didn't need a shirt.
Doesn't need a shirt.
For all you know, that's like a house coat to him.
That's just what he wears. I mean, whatever makes you happy. Maybe the inside is real fuzzy and comfortable. Boba just wants to snuggle with his giant coat.
So Bobo's big speech, I mean, like it has the desired effect, and he says a whole bunch of stuff, but the one thing I really caught was that he says that they've been working for 15 years towards freedom. So they spent the last 15 years, or Bobo has spent the last 15 years looking for Constance's son's bones, I guess.
Yes.
So that's an interesting time frame. Like, why 15 years? Was that just when they like made their deal?
It's when Willow was kidnapped.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm. When Wynonna was 12. Yep. It happened right after Ward was killed, right? Because he couldn't be the lead.
Oh, so they didn't have to worry.
So they had to find another way out.
So they didn't have to worry about the heir, so they could move freely.
Right. Which is why he's fine to kill Wynonna. Like, he's not even trying to make a deal with her because he thinks that if he gets the bones to Clooney for some way that I don't quite understand, she's going to help them leave Purgatory. Or the Triangle.
Which I feel like she probably wouldn't, but...
She's going to tell them where Willa is, right? Isn't that the deal? Because she's the one who hit her. And she's leveraging her son's bones against the location of Willa.
I mean,
point.
fine.
I mean, that's what I always thought. I could
no,
be
you're absolutely right. Again, it hurts to say that.
I know, I'm like, can we think of another answer? Nope, Monica's right in this case.
You know what, guys?
So then Bobo and Doc shake on the deal that they're going to team up, and Bobo can get or tell Doc who changed him.
Yep.
Sure does.
And that's the end of the episode. The episode where I have talked for 2 hours.
I mean, I liked this episode. I liked all of the episodes of this show, obviously. I think that the problem that we're finding with this episode is that there's just still so much exposition in it, just like in the pilot. And while there were a lot of really great scenes, like there was just a lot of detail in it.
The plot wasn't, it wasn't the best. Like, Killer Miller doesn't even come into play until like Act 3, essentially.
And he doesn't really accomplish anything.
He's like the worst shadow assassin ever.
Yeah,
as shadow assassins go.
He's definitely the worst one I've ever seen.
Yeah, the episode mainly focuses around it's just a ton of exposition on, like, Doc, kind of setting him up. And the Earp sisters have some good moments, and, like, they're moving into the homestead, but, that's not my favorite episode of the series.
No, it's just setting up good stuff to happen, and we have the Great Way Hut moment, which was good, and I think when people think of this episode, that's a lot of times, like, the only thing they remember from it.
Right, yeah, there's a lot of plot in this episode versus character development, which we get a lot more of in other episodes.
And I think that's all of us, that's our jam, is the character development. Like, the plot is fine. The plot is great. We like it. The writing's great. But we're here for the characters.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. I'm all about character development, so this episode was it's setting up a lot so that it's setting up so we will have character development. Like, you have to get this exposition out of the way.
Yes.
Yeah, because you have Doc starting to evaluate his position. You have Wynonna starting to try to figure out, is this who I am? And you have Waverly starting to step more into her own identity of, like, I'm going to stand up and tell you what I actually think instead of just being agreeable. Like, I want to come to the adult table as well.
Yeah. And you see the beginning of Dolls and Nedley's, really their relationship of antagonizing each other. And you see Nicole start to feel, that's the beginning of where she starts to feel left out. Because no one will tell her what the hell is going on.
It's like we said last week, how the show did a really good job of laying a lot of track, and this episode is basically where they just put all the pieces on the board. And next week is where we start to actually, like, move them forward.
I think that's a really good point.
Agreed. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And I have no problem admitting that, because I'm not an asshole.
I mean, I'm totally an asshole. It's not like... That's not a surprise.
It's not new information.
No.
Do we want to jump to Earp Sisters moment?
Yeah.
Okay. I really liked the Earp Sisters moment where they were around the fire at the end, and Waverly's like, I blamed you for what happened, but really it was my fault. And they just kind of talk it through, and then they're talking about Doc, and it's just really sets their relationship up. Like, it just gives us more of an indication of what they're like as sisters. I just thought it was really nice and really cute. I enjoyed it.
So that was my favorite Earp Sister moment too, but for a slightly different reason.
Okay.
So, like, last week, my favorite moment was the murder board, where Wynonna is just kind of yelling at Waverly because she just wants to protect her. So in the scene at the end around the fire, where Wynonna's like, so nowhere's safe, you're going to come live with me. And Waverly's kind of hesitant, but kind of not. But it's just another example of Wynonna putting Waverly's safety first. Like, it's her number one priority. And I just like seeing that consistently through the seasons.
Cool. That's probably mine too, but just for non-solidarity's sake, I'm gonna pick something else.
This is gonna be the worst poll.
Just put disagree is the choice. It's like put the top one twice, like last scene at the campfire, disagree. Just that's it. No, that was an absolutely great scene, and I love it, and it starts to solidify their relationship more on that adult level. If Waverly's kind of in as the consultant, and even though Wynonna's trying to protect her, she's never going to get over that. I mean, she's always going to protect her, but she realizes that, Waverly brings something to the table on her own. But I do just want to throw back to that picture she drew of just her and Wynonna. Like, it's always amazing to me, just for any instance in the show where it exemplifies how much they love each other. And Waverly is just like, like, she didn't have a picture of anybody else with her. Like, Wynonna is like her person, and I love that.
Oh man, you just said her person, and now I'm having a bunch of Grey's Anatomy feels. I'll just be over here.
You broke her again. Nice job.
Gosh. All right, let's wrap this up.
Well, thanks for listening, everyone. If you have anything you want to say about this episode, please tweet at or DM us at ErpsplainPod. Leave us a voicemail at 678-871-0098, or you can email us at somethinginair@gmail.com. And you can find me, Monica, on Twitter at Lesbianzer. You can find BP at Beep33TV, and Michelle is at MicNick1291. Did you love this podcast? Rate, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes and Google Play. Did you hate it? If you did, keep it to yourself, because we don't need that kind of negativity in our lives. Once again, we just want to thank you all so much for listening. And remember, it may be a shit show, but it's our shit show.
Sweet.
Perfect.